I mean, he's barely good enough to even be a starting quarterback, let alone above average. I mean, you're just insulting all of our intelligence by even suggesting such a thing. What are you even talking about? That would be like if the Packers said 10 years ago that Eddie Lacy was at a normal weight. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Johnny Montalbano. This is another edition of Moving the Goalpost. You can follow this show across social media at MTGPETB. You can follow the Empty the Bench Network across social media at ETB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart, Johnny at Montalbano NY. You can follow, you can watch all Empty the Bench shows on YouTube.com/ETB Network. And you can listen to Moving the Goalpost wherever you get your favorite podcasts or your least favorite podcasts. It's all in the same place. And make sure to like and subscribe. And all right, so a lot of NFL free agency going on. We all, look, we both kind of got screwed a little bit by all this because we had to change the whole rundown. But we got to talk. We got to lead a lot of Jets news and a lot of just quarterback news in general, namely with the Dolphins. Tua is going to the Falcons, and the Dolphins are signing Malik Willis. Interesting.
Very, because I did not have the Dolphins in the top 15 of my teams for Tua to be going to. And this is an.
You mean the Falcons?
I'm sorry, yes, to the Falcons. The Dolphins, I didn't have them go back to the Dolphins either, obviously. And the Dolphins took a major cap hit, which we'll talk about here, and we'll talk about with the Malik Willis signing. This is a very interesting, kind of puzzling, and at the same time, almost a little bit understanding Tua going to the Falcons, Nick D, because he has a chance to play a little bit because he's going to be behind a guy in Michael Penix who has been hurt, who at times has been ineffective, and he goes in there with a new head coach there now in the Falcons and Kevin Stefanski. So when I thought about this first, I was a bit surprised, especially after what we talked about last week with Tua. But the more that I think about it, I don't think this is a terrible signing from the Falcons side of things, because if we've learned so far with Mike Evans leaving, and I know we might get to talk about him, just shows you this whole free agency thing as the new league year started. It shows you just how the NFL, though, is still king of all sports here in the U.S. Because here it is, free agency kicking off this week, the new league year, and it's taken over the news. And we could literally almost spend the whole episode just talking about this here in early first third of March. But I think this actually has a chance to work for both sides with Tua and the Falcons, because the Falcons could still see themselves as being a good team, a team that can compete in what is still a pretty crappy division, and a division that right now, if you look on paper in the first couple of months of the offseason, doesn't look like anybody's really taking any steps forward, dramatic steps forward. So it's a mix of a few emotions here with Tua to the Falcons. But I think it has a chance to work out for both parties.
I think so, too. I actually think this makes perfect sense. I mean, it's very easy to – here's the thing. When teams are in suboptimal quarterback situations, it's very easy to just shit on whatever decision they make because it seems like a bad decision. But the truth is, of all options on the table, none of them seem like ideal choices. So you have to keep that in mind. Of all the teams in the NFL to get Tua, I think the Falcons probably make the most sense. They probably make the most sense because think about it. They have a good backup. Michael Penix is a pretty solid backup, assuming they're going to start Tua, assuming they do. Which you never know. That might not even happen because Tua never stays healthy. They need a good backup. So they have that. The other thing is that they have an experienced offensive-minded head coach who, even despite the fact that he got fired from Cleveland, actually for Browns head coach did a pretty good job. I mean, people forget, but the Browns, expecting somebody to coach the Browns is like expecting a pilot to land a plane with no wings. Kevin Stefanski has made how many times has he made the playoffs with the Browns? He's made
twice, I believe.
Okay. So for a Browns head coach, Kevin Stefanski has done a very good job. And I think a similar type of thing could happen with the Falcons potentially. But the more important point, I think Kevin Stefanski would do a better job with Tua just systematically than Mike McDaniel did. But the other thing that and this is the most important point, is that the Falcons play in an atrocious division. And anybody can win that division if you're just mildly competent, especially now with Mike Evans going to the Niners, which it might be a bigger deal than you might think. And Baker Mayfield had a really, really great season last year, and they still couldn't make the playoffs. An 8-9 Panthers team made it. Without question, a below-average team ended up making the playoffs last year. And if you're just an average team, you have a really, really good chance to win the division. Like, in all likelihood, being an average team would win you that division. So, and Baker Mayfield, like I said, had a really, really good year last year. If he has just a little bit of a step back, how much worse are the Bucs going to be than they were last year? So, I just think this move makes a lot of sense for the Dolphins, for the Falcons. And not only is it an easier division, but also 3 times a year, Tua had to travel to to New England, Buffalo, and MetLife, all outdoor, colder stadiums that are not easy for quarterbacks to throw in. And what do we know about Tua and the Dolphins? They're really bad in cold weather. At least now he's in a southern stadium. I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like next year, but they're at least in a southern division where the elements are not going to be nearly as much of an issue as they were when he was in the AFC East.
Yeah, and that's a good point you brought up, because I was going to bring that up next. There is one thing also, the weather, like you just said. So Tua will have at least 4 games now a year where if he does, and then we're assuming if he does start. And I don't know if that's a guarantee right now. I'm trying to remember if Penix, he's coming off of an injury, so maybe Tua does start, and that's what's interesting with this signing too. But let's assume he is the starter, he'll have at least 4 games that will be indoors. The 2 obvious, and well, actually more, because Mercedes-Benz Stadium there in Atlanta is an indoor stadium, and then the Superdome, that's actually 1 game, but you have the Superdome. I'm just trying to see here. So the opponents, they will have the NFC North and AFC North teams, as well as the Commanders, the Chiefs, and the 49ers on their schedule next.
I'm sorry, you said AFC North?
They face the NFC North and AFC North teams, as well as the Commanders, the Chiefs, and the Niners.
Okay.
So and we won't know the exact schedule until sometime in May.
Well, the NFC North, 2 of those teams play in domes, or 3. At least 2 of those teams in the NFC North play in domes.
Vikings and Lions, yeah.
The Vikings and Lions. So I don't know if the elements won't be an issue there. Okay, but yeah, I mean, going to Chicago, depending on the time of year, and Green Bay might be tough.
And they also are playing a game in Madrid this year, and that will be a home game for them, because it is against the Bengals, who will be the road opponent.
Okay. Oh, so they're playing. Okay.
So yes, an international game, and Tua did play. Remember, an international game against the Commanders this past season in 2025.
Okay, where did they play then?
That was, I want to say that also was in Madrid, if I remember correctly. The Commanders and the Dolphins. That was, I believe, in Madrid. But so he's got experience doing that. So we'll find out. I mean, I think for both parties. So yeah. I think it definitely does work. If anything, the Malik Willis signing to the Dolphins, I almost don't get for a reason. And what I don't get is the Dolphins took a huge cap hit. They're gonna have a ton of dead cap money with Tua, and then they just gave $45 million guaranteed to Malik Willis, who we don't really know if he can start every week. I think he's a very good backup. I don't believe he's a starting quarterback though in this league.
Yeah, we don't know. He probably isn't, because if he were a starting quarterback, we most likely would have seen him starting. Yeah, just because he's hardly even. Yeah, I agree completely. He's hardly even played. What makes them think that this is going to be a recipe for success? The other question is that not only does Malik Willis have very little experience, and there's no evidence so far that he's a starter, but their head coach also doesn't have a lot of experience. He was the Packers defensive coordinator. Wait, do I get?
Yeah, Jeff Hackney.
He was the Packers defensive coordinator for 2 seasons, and that's the extent of his NFL experience. He's a defensive coordinator with no head coaching experience, not a lot of NFL experience, and you have an inexperienced backup quarterback that you're guaranteeing $45 million. What can go wrong there?
Well, the thing is, and look, I like Malik Willis as a very capable backup and a transition guy, and that's not really even the issue, because I'm not trying to contradict myself in what I said about Malik Willis on this program last week. But it does make sense a little bit, because the Dolphins do have 2 former Packer guys in that organization. Hackney now the head coach, and Sullivan the GM, who was in the Packers organization. But when you have $99 million in dead cap money that you're going to have to deal with because of getting rid of Tua, why are you giving another $45 million guaranteed to Malik Willis when, I think he's a very capable backup? He went in there a couple of times when Jordan Love got hurt and actually played quite well, but it's a very small sample size. I think over the course of a full season, I don't think it's sustainable. And the times that he did play a full season, he wasn't that great.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't understand what they were thinking. I think we have breaking news. Wait, hold on a second. About Maxx Crosby.
Well, that broke also this week earlier.
No. I think it's something different.
Let me see.
Here's what it is. For a tweet from Adam Schefter. I want to make sure this isn't fake.
Oh, no, it's
Ravens
real.
Backed out of the Maxx Crosby trade.
And this is a thing. Yeah, so the Raiders.
This is real. This is a real Adam Schefter tweet.
Yes, and it says, it's actually, I think from the Raiders side here, it's a statement that says the Baltimore Ravens have backed out of our trade agreement for Maxx Crosby. We will have no further comment at this time.
What the hell happened?
Is it?
I don't understand, because look, in the past couple of years, the Ravens defense has been their biggest problem. Don't you think adding a generational pass rusher might be a pretty good idea for them?
Well, my question is, what is the reason?
I don't know.
I mean, they don't in that statement, they don't explain why. Usually but the thing is, they backed out of it. Now, usually when a trade happens, it's 2 sides that agree, and usually it's based on a physical. But the way that was worded and that looks like it's from Raiders PR. I mean, that's what Schefter has posted, but that's coming from the Raiders PR.
Yeah.
About the Crosby deal. Wow. And that's something we were planning to talk about on the show.
I mean, it's a good time to break. We could talk about it. It's better than if it broke an hour from now after we were done.
That would be the story of our lives, really, if that was the case.
Yeah. Interesting. I agree. The only thing that would make sense would be if it was a physical. Like that's the only reason that would make.
Well, I'll tell you right now, that right now proves that the Ravens are so far a big loser in free agency, because they lost a lot of players and they were trying to justify adding a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame possibly defensive end to shore up an area that they were really struggling with. But they lost 7 players to free so far in the free agency list. A few of them went to my Giants. Harbaugh's taking some of his players with him to MetLife.
He's almost turning into like the coaching version of Aaron Rodgers. He's just bringing all his guys in.
And it's happening with Brian Dable down there with the Titans too. He's taking a few Giants with him.
Yeah,
like Wan'Dale Robinson and Cordell Flott and others. But look, this is pretty significant because the Ravens were looking at shoring up an area that had been a major hole for them, and they've lost a lot so far. And until we can find out exactly what the reason is, I mean, it's very alarming to me that it was a very short statement like that. The Baltimore Ravens had backed out of our trade agreement for Maxx Crosby, and it was the Ravens that did it. It wasn't like it was the Raiders who pulled it off. It was the Ravens who did. So is there something that we don't know about as this is being discussed right now? Like, is there some sort of red flag that we don't know, that they know, that the Ravens know that we don't know?
That's the only explanation that makes sense. That's the only explanation that makes sense, is that there's something that the Ravens found out or something like that they didn't know at the time, and that's why they're backing out. When it just the move seemed like a no-brainer for the Ravens. That's got to be the only reason why, is that it's a failed physical, like a little bit like the Mets with Carlos Correa. Remember a few years ago, the Mets almost got Carlos Correa, but he failed the physical, and that's why the whole thing fell through.
Yeah, I believe it was something that came up in his physical, and that's why they backed out of the signing. Maybe that is it, and we'll maybe find out over the course of time. But now that opens up the doors to maybe does he get traded elsewhere? Like we've always heard, the Cowboys have been rumored to get Crosby. I mean, they've been talked about to get Crosby for a while. But what is it here? Is it a physical thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense for Maxx Crosby to go to the Cowboys because he looks like most Cowboy fans.
And Jerry's desperate. I mean, I know they've shored up some defensive guys so far, but that's still an average team at best, to be honest.
I will say this, though. Last year, the Cowboys may have been the most entertaining team to watch because it was all they were built like a fantasy team. It was all just quarterbacks and receivers, and, they put up a bunch of points, but their defense couldn't stop anything. Like their games may have been the most entertaining of all teams to watch in the league last year because of how they were built. And Dak had an amazing season last year, but because of the team around him, they weren't even a playoff team. They were below average.
Yeah, it was like Burrow back in 2024.
Almost exactly like that. And the interesting thing is, maybe I'm just too young to remember the history of it all, but it seems like that's happening more often now than it used to, where quarterbacks are having MVP caliber seasons, but they're not on good teams because the rest of they don't win a lot of games. They're average at best because the teams around them are so bad.
You know why a lot of that it feels like that? Because they spend so much money on the quarterback position that they can't fill out the rest of the roster.
Exactly. That's exactly the reason why in a lot of cases.
And what was one of the many reasons why Tom Brady was able to win all those Super Bowls and be that successful? Because Tom Brady was never the highest paid quarterback in the league.
He took pay cuts. But it's interesting because people always praise him for it. But you also have to remember the NFLPA hated it because it was undercutting other quarterbacks. It was like artificially bringing down the value of other players in his position. At least that was the argument. Which I guess is a little bit true if the best player, or arguably the best player in the league at the time, is taking less money.
Well, if you look at even Mahomes with how much he's making, almost looks like a little bit of a bargain for the Chiefs as they try and shore up some things. And the Chiefs also, they had an interest. The Chiefs are another team too that we could talk about nationally real quick. Bringing in Kenneth Walker, Travis Kelce announced that he's going to come back. They've made some additions as well. They've had some subtractions. Like I know they lost Pacheco to the Lions, but as the Chiefs try,
that's the worst thing in the world for them anyway.
Well, I don't know what the Lions are doing because they traded Montgomery away. They're starting to lose some players to free agency. So
Is it official? Is Kenneth Walker officially signed to the Chiefs, or are they going to sign him?
He is. I mean, now again, all these signings will all be official after the show comes out. But remember, the new league year started on Wednesday. We're doing this show on Tuesday, and we've had the Monday and Tuesday of free agency. But none of these moves can be official until 4 p.m. Wednesday. So this will all be official. You'll probably see the tweets come around again on Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You don't see that very often. How often do you see Super Bowl MVPs go to a different team the year after? Has that happened very much?
No, but this is why teams have a tough time repeating, because you lose valuable players off that championship team, and they also lost Kubiak, the offensive coordinator, to be the Raiders head coach. So 2 reasons why you have success in repeating a lot, not the 2 biggest reasons, but 2 of the big reasons are that you keep your core players, you keep your core players try and repeat, and you keep the same coordinators. And right now, the Seahawks now need a new OC and the MVP. They still have a very capable running back with Charbonnet and others, and they do have some others.
Yeah.
I mean, they were going with almost a 3-headed monster midpoint of the season, so they have the running back potential. But when you don't have the same guys pretty much that got you to the game and helped you win the big game, it's hard to go back. And the Niners have done very well with bringing in Mike Evans. I think that's a great move, bringing in Mike Evans for the Niners. You have the Rams, who are continuing to shore up some pieces as well. The Cardinals, I have no idea what the Cardinals are basically tanking for 2027 QB. I mean, with
I don't know what they're going to be doing this year.
Bringing in Gardner Minshew to be with Brissett. I mean, that 2-headed monster just tells you that they're going to go for a QB in 2027.
I mean, Brissett's not a bad bridge option. I mean, he's one of the better backups in the league.
I think he's better days behind him, though. Even in the backup potential.
Look, I don't think Brissett was really that much worse than Kyler Murray was last year.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, you talk about the Cardinals; their defense was atrocious. They actually have some decent playmakers on offense, but that defense was so bad last year.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is everything seemed pretty bad last year for them.
Remember though, in the beginning, just to be fair though, in the beginning of the year, they were losing a lot of close games. So I mean, they had lost like 4 games by like 9, and their first 4 losses, I think, were like by 9 points combined. So I mean, they were in a lot of these games, but once it was very close in the beginning, but then second half of the year, that defense just completely fell apart. And then the whole situation with Kyler and stuff. So,
I mean, Kyler Murray's the only quarterback I've seen get hit in the head with a snap and have to go into concussion protocol.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, just what a wild start though to the free agency thing, and it's a dramatic change, even from a national level. I mean, even for a local perspective, like I know we'll get to with your Jets and my Giants. I mean, even they've been busy in the first couple of days.
Yeah, and just talking in Tua to the Falcons, just saying like maybe because the truth is Tua is not a bad player. He's an okay player as long as he stays healthy, which he usually doesn't. But do you think it's possible? I mean, he's an injury-prone player. He was injured quite often, even when in his college days at Alabama. And he did get injured one of those seasons, and probably 2 of them actually, if I'm remembering correctly. But maybe there's a certain point of like he needs a change of scenery, and he'd be getting a change of scenery anyway, a little bit at least, with a head coaching change. But maybe Miami, maybe like the Dolphins system asked a little too much from him. Maybe a coach like Stefanski can make the most out of him better than a coach like Mike McDaniel could. And Tua was never a great player. He was never a top 10 player. He was never an MVP candidate or anything like that. But the Dolphins have had some pretty good teams with Tua as the quarterback, and sometimes the biggest problem was their defense more than it was their offense. Like, yeah, Tua he has obvious issues with staying healthy and accuracy, but he's certainly a capable player. Like, I don't think he's like a Zach Wilson where I'm just like, yeah, anybody can be this guy's head coach. He's probably not going to be good. I don't think he's like that. I think that you can be a good team with Tua as your quarterback if you use him right and you make the most out of him. And I just don't think Mike McDaniel did that when he was with the Dolphins.
I think you're right. And the Falcons do have Bijan Robinson, so a very capable running back. Now, I mean, he had decent running back play, though, with Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert when he was with Miami, and also had, obviously, Tyreek Hill for a while and Jalen Waddle, thank you, his former Alabama teammate. So he's got receivers on the Falcons side, and the Falcons defense was actually not bad last year. It actually played very well. I mean, I think it led the league in sacks, or it was right up there. So yeah, the change of scenery, I think, definitely can help. I'm curious to see now, because you have Michael Penix there, and I know he's coming off of an injury. I'm curious to see this quarterback battle now with the Falcons, and that was one of the many reactions that I felt with when I saw the news that Tua did go there, because, like I said, it wasn't in the top half of my thought process of where Tua was going. But as time has gone on and I've had time to sit and ponder it and think about it some more, like I'm even doing on this episode right now, I'm starting to think more and more that maybe this can work.
Yeah, no, I think, look, nothing is a guarantee, especially for a team like the Falcons, which are not in the best situation. But there are certain things, like I was saying before, that really are working in their favor, where this type of move makes a lot of sense. Just their division namely the division that they're in, the head coaching situation, and also the fact that, Michael Penix is a pretty good backup. And assuming, like I said before, that Tua is starting, like even if Tua gets hurt, it's not like they have nobody left to back him up. So in that case, I say, yeah, like there's really nothing all that bad about this move for the Falcons. And I guess it tells you a little bit that they don't have a ton. They're not totally sold on Penix yet. If they're willing to bring in Tua at this point, like if they were really sold on him being a franchise quarterback, I don't think they would have brought Tua in. But you can't conclude yet that Michael Penix is a franchise quarterback. You really just can't.
No. I want to mention one more thing before we get to the local stuff, just to follow up to what were the breaking news during our episode about Maxx Crosby. Multiple sources reporting he did not pass his physical.
Okay. I figured that was the reason. It didn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out, that it was probably the physical. It's funny because that is sometimes, in my opinion, the biggest what if at least in football history is what if Drew Brees passed his physical and went to the Dolphins. And not to sound like an SEC fan talking about hypotheticals, but imagine if that had happened. There's a really good chance Nick Saban stays with the Dolphins. That means you would have Saban and Belichick, two potential dynasties. One actual dynasty with the Patriots and one hypothetical dynasty with the Dolphins, with Drew Brees and Nick Saban. Imagine having a combination of Nick Saban and Drew Brees and Bill Belichick and Tom Brady in the same division. And what would have imagine if he had just stayed and then he had never gone to Alabama? What would have happened with Alabama? The whole course of history in college and NFL football would have been altered.
Great point. You're right. You're totally right. But remember, and Crosby was hurt, at the end of the year, and there was a lot of talk about the Raiders shutting him down and how that all worked out. So there's a bit of drama here regarding this. Then you know what? Then he makes perfect sense for the Cowboys. Then you think Jerry could care less that he failed the physical?
Well, it depends on the reason why. I mean, maybe there's a pretty good reason that the Ravens that the Ravens cared about this him failing his physical. I don't know. Like, it doesn't specify what the exact issue is, but it could be.
No. But remember, he did that. What was it? The shoulder at the end at the last couple of weeks of the season.
I think so. Which I don't know how much that affects defense.
It's not like Crosby's the young. I mean, he's been in the league for a while though too. But now the Ravens have to figure out what they're doing now, because they've lost a lot in free agency. The Giants took a few of their players. I think they lost 7 players in the first 2 days. Yeah. And so and that team, there's only so many more years that Lamar Jackson has left there with the Ravens.
Yeah.
So you have to figure it out. And
no, exactly.
So this is kind of significant from both teams' perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah, no, certainly. And well, that's the thing though. It's like the Ravens' issue has been their defense. That's been their biggest issue. And for them to just back out of this deal, it's got to be a pretty like, you would think that it's a big deal that whatever it was that he failed on his physical was a big enough deal for them to say that for them to back out.
Correct. And they traded and they traded 2 first, and they were going to trade 2 first-round picks for Crosby. Now, I'll tell you right now, Crosby doesn't have that kind of value right now. So if somebody is going to take a flyer on him, which will probably, I shouldn't say flyer, but if they're going to make a deal for him, well, I'll tell you, it won't happen now. Probably won't happen until after the draft, and you're not going to get 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
So same old Raiders too.
Well, you know what? Speaking of same old, the Jets might.
Well, let's get to them because
if there's any team that doesn't care about a player not passing a physical, it sounds like the Jets would be up there.
That's why I said that's why I said either. That's why I put the Cowboys in, because what would stop Jerry Jones from doing that?
Yeah, well, I think that the thing that with Jerry Jones is that it doesn't stop him when players are felons. I think that's the biggest thing with him. But
yeah,
the Jets traded for Geno Smith. I feel like Geno Smith has gone around the world, around the league and back, and now he's back with the Jets. He's been on almost like a typical backup quarterback. He's been on almost every NFL team. The Jets traded a 6th rounder for Geno Smith. This is just a ridiculously stupid move. And here's my issue with this move. If Geno Smith is your backup option, okay, fine. I'm okay with that. The problem is that as of now, he's the starting. He's like the starter in all likelihood.
He is the starter. If you want to be honest, yeah.
So what exactly are the Jets doing when we saw? Here's the thing. He played in Vegas last year. Now I understand the Raiders are a dumpster fire of an organization. But he was arguably the worst starting quarterback in the league last year, other than maybe, Justin Fields. And you have to keep in mind, he played in, like we were talking about elements before, the AFC West, a much friendlier quarterback division for, just in general, and in Vegas, which has much milder weather than they have in MetLife Stadium, and also played under Pete Carroll, who is not only one of the best football coaches of all time, also coached Geno Smith just a couple of years ago and sort of helped revive his career. And that was the whole logic behind signing the Raiders signing Geno Smith. Imagine now Geno Smith is a year older. He's a bit over the hill. He's a full year older and will be playing under Aaron Glenn in MetLife Stadium in a tougher division in a northern stadium where twice you have to travel to New England and Buffalo. I guess the only easy team on that schedule is likely the Dolphins. How do you think that's going to work out? He's a year older playing under a less experienced head coach in a tougher stadium, in a colder division, and in a tougher stadium to throw in. I only can possibly believe that it's going to look worse because don't forget, last year, the Jets' offense was not just bad because the players weren't good. It's also the fact that the coaching was bad. They made stupid decisions at some of the stupidest times. And I don't think that same thing was true about Pete Carroll. I don't think Pete Carroll was really the reason the Raiders weren't good. I think it had a lot more to do with Geno Smith than it did with Pete Carroll. Now you have the combination of the bad quarterback and the bad head coach. What's this going to look like?
And so this developed so quick because a couple of days ago, before this actually happened, there were reports coming out that the Jets were looking at Geno and even Carson Wentz because they had Frank Reich, and I guess he was a big Frank Reich guy. So as Tuesday went along, and I'm trying to follow it along while I'm working, I see that now it seems like Geno's in the works for them, and I'm just, one side of me is like, why? The other side is, well, are you, it's a discussion that we had last week. Are they trying to tank? They're not. The Jets organization will tell you they're not trying to tank, but are they really trying to tank for that number one pick?
I'll tell you why they're not, because NFL teams never tank.
Well, so the fans would love for them to tank, but the organization is not. And again, it's a conversation we had last week, and Aaron Glenn's not going to do that because he has another year. If he has another year this year like he had last year, he won't be the head coach after, and we're going to do this process all over again if you're the Jets. I just think the one thing, though, that concerns me from the Jets side of all this is when they make the trade, they didn't waste a lot of time, like no time in making the move for him. And then, according to reports, they view Geno as, quote, an above-average starting quarterback.
Who said that?
The organization did. I can get you some specifics.
Are they living – did they sleep through the last 3 years? Are they living in the 2022 season still? Like, what in the world are they talking about?
Well, this is – so I'll tell you. Let me see who it was.
Wait, by the way, when did he play – did he ever play under Frank Reich? Geno Smith?
I don't believe so, no.
Look, it would make a little bit of sense if he had played under – I'm looking at Frank Reich's history. I don't think he's ever coached Geno Smith. He's never coached a team that he was on.
Yeah, no. I don't. So now the Jets are going to go to the backup role after this because it sounds like Carson Wentz could still be in play for them as a backup role because of Frank Reich. He's still in the works, and I believe it was the GM, by the way, Darren Morey.
No. That was the NBA GM.
Darren Muji. What's his name?
Darren Muji.
I don't even know who he is.
Darren Muji.
Darren Muji. He's the one that views him as an above average quarterback.
Well, he's an idiot. Wait. I want to be fair to him. He said that he's an above average. Wait. That's. Wait. So he, oh my God, I would understand on some level if maybe they had said he's the best option we can go to right now. But to say that he is an above average starting quarterback, I mean, he's barely good enough to even be a starting quarterback, let alone above average. I mean, you're just insulting all of our intelligence by even suggesting such a thing. What are you even talking about? That would be like if the Packers said 10 years ago that Eddie Lacy was at a normal weight. Like, obviously that's not true. And everybody with eyes who followed football at all last year knows that's not true. If they had done this 3 years ago, I would say, okay, that's a fair point. He was an above average quarterback. But he's not. Now he is not. And which quarterback do you think he's going to look more like? The 2022 version of Geno Smith, or, I don't know, the Geno Smith for most of his career, which was not even really good enough to be a starting quarterback.
And really what he was like at West Virginia. I mean, he wasn't this dynamite quarterback at West Virginia either.
He was a good player, and I remember
he's a solid player, but not
– solid player, and that's how I prefer to remember Geno Smith, because that's really what I know him – that's really what I think of Geno Smith as. I think of him as his West Virginia days and his early Jets days. That's really what I think of him for. And I also think of him for getting punched in the jaw.
Yeah.
That too.
What happens, though, if this leads to a couple of Jet wins and they don't get amongst the top pick this in 2027?
I mean, look, that happened this year with Justin Fields. So
it's happened. The problem is it's happened a million times.
It's happened. I mean, that's exactly what happened with the Jets and the Jaguars, and then that's what ended up costing the Jets Trevor Lawrence. Although I do always think I don't like to play the hypothetical game because I feel like if Trevor Lawrence went to the Jets, he'd be like another Darnold. It would have gone somewhere else and then thrived there. I don't think the Jets would be like Super Bowl contenders like the Jaguars were last year if we had gotten Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that's true.
This kind of surprised me, and I think the only thing that surprises me a little bit more is they're thinking about getting Carson Wentz too to be a backup. So you're going to have a veteran starting and a veteran backing up.
Yeah.
So you know what, though? That's that transition, though, for 2027. That's, again, because there's not many QBs that are going to come out of this draft. The Jets are in a position where they're not going to be able to draft a QB at the top because of where they are situated. I mean, Mendoza will be off the board. Ty Simpson's not going to go that as high as the Jets are. So they really don't have an option.
Maybe they can get Ty Simpson, but the Jets can't guarantee that they're going to be able to get Ty Simpson. It's not like they have the number one. They're not like the Raiders that know they can get Fernando Mendoza. They don't know where Ty Simpson's going to go. And also, he's also going to be a rookie quarterback. I think in the draft, if the Jets draft a quarterback, Ty Simpson is probably their best bet. But we can't guarantee that the Jets are going to get him, and we can't guarantee he'll be ready to start as soon as he gets here, especially with the Jets clown show organization. I don't
even think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, at least right away. I think he's somebody that has to sit behind somebody.
Maybe, but here's one thing I'll say about Simpson is that he has a lot of experience in college. And the thing with NFL quarterbacks is that they tend to be much more ready, NFL ready, when they have more experience in college, which is almost common sense. It makes perfect sense. The problem is that a lot of other quarterbacks, you look at somebody like Anthony Richardson, for instance, who we talked about last week, he didn't have a whole lot of reps under his belt in college and, therefore wasn't really ready when he went to the Colts. That's not true about Ty Simpson. He has a lot of experience, but it does worry me a little bit when you have just a quarterback going into the Jets situation. He was at Alabama where he had, Saban was his coach for a little bit, but also Kalen DeBoer, who is a very good offensive-minded head coach. So, that does worry me a little bit where you go from a really good system like Alabama and then go to a system like a quarterback graveyard, which is the Jets. That's like a graveyard for quarterbacks. So that does worry me a little bit. Either way, the point I'm making is if you're going to go the free agency route, Geno Smith is not a good option at all. The only thing that would get me to change my mind about this would be if something like they make another move, from here. If they make another move where we can say, all right, Geno Smith is only maybe going to be the backup or the third string. In that case, I would say fine. But if that's the case, you didn't really need Geno Smith anyway. You gave up a 6th rounder for what? Are we going to end up like the Browns where we just have like 8 quarterbacks on the roster?
Well, that's my thing, though. Like, I don't think there's any other direction they can go in for a starter now with this move. And then they're talking about bringing in Carson Wentz too. Then what else can you possibly do? I mean, Brady Cook showed you he can't be in this league. Brady Cook can't be an answer, and Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor, those ships have long sailed.
I mean, look, I think Tyrod Taylor was better than Justin Fields was last year, but look, he's not getting any younger. And
I think of Tyrod Taylor like I think of Brissett and even Malik Willis, capable backups, but guys who can't start several weeks in a row.
Yeah, and my thing is that if the Jets go into the situation next year where Geno Smith is their best option as a starting quarterback, you've failed. You've totally failed. And Geno Smith, okay, maybe he can be a backup, but that would be like getting a spare tire before you have your actual tires. Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You're going to have to actually make a move for a player that could be a starting quarterback. And like you said, there are players in free agency that are available that are probably better options than Geno Smith. I mean, you talked about Carson Wentz. Another option is Kirk Cousins. He's going to be a free agent. So, I would rather see them get Kirk Cousins than Geno Smith. At least Kirk Cousins is at least somewhat of a bridge option and actually looked pretty good at the end of last. It actually didn't look all that bad for some of last season. I think that's at least better.
But it's not encouraging. That's the thing. None of these options are really encouraging. I mean, Geno's not either. I get it. At this point now, you're just trying to punt this season away and get to 2027. That's really what it is. I just don't get why you bring in two guys. It's like when the Browns drafted two quarterbacks in the same draft and used them both. Now the Jets are bringing in two veterans. I mean, the Giants brought in two veterans, but they also they drafted a QB though too to learn behind them.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying Kirk Cousins was amazing last year, but towards the end of the season, the Falcons really didn't look all that bad. So I think I think there's nothing that they could have done would have been encouraging, but I think that would have at least been better. I think it would have at least been better.
Well, we'll see. I mean, one thing this GM is not afraid to do is to make trades. We've seen that, and he's done that already a couple of times already in the first couple of days of free agents of the offseason. Getting Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins was another one. What did you think about that?
I liked it. And not only it was a pretty good move. They only give up a 7th round pick. I think that was a steal, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was. I was before this. I was planning on spending a lot of the show talking about this before they ended up signing Geno Smith, which overshadowed it. But yeah, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, can't hurt. Like you said, only a 7th round pick. I mean, I think his better days. He's played a long time though too, and
yeah,
that's my only concern. That's probably why, and I think also the Dolphins are trying to cut their losses on pretty much everybody they have right now. Which is why, when you trade him in division, that's all you need to know. So he can come back and bite you twice in that regard. But yeah, low trade, possibly a little bit of like a steal. But how long do you think he has left in this league?
How old is he?
I feel like he's been in the league forever.
Just because it feels like it doesn't mean he is. He's only 29.
Oh, is he really? Wow, that's crazy. I thought he's been in the league.
No, he was. I remember him from his Alabama.
Okay,
days,
so he's been in the league since 2019. Wow, I feel like he's been in the league a lot longer. I feel like he's been in the league a lot longer.
Well, it feels like it, but he wasn't. I mean, you get that. You don't get that as much in football. Actually, often you get the opposite in football because careers are so short. But it's like that in basketball. Actually,
basketball is totally like that.
I was watching the Knicks game last night, and Brook Lopez is on the Clippers. I just thought to myself, how is Brook Lopez still in the league? I was watching him in middle school. Like, how is he still in the league? And I looked it up. He's only like 37 years old. And I was like, how is he only 37? It feels like he's been around for 20 years.
Yeah, but like you said, though, basketball players have a little bit more longevity.
Well, because they come out of college, they get drafted at like 19,
yeah,
and then they're 20 years old and they're starters in the league sometimes. So that's the reason why. But he's been around a long time.
Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah. But Minkah Fitzpatrick has a bit of time left, but you know what? He is a safety. And the thing with safeties is that sometimes their careers don't last very long. I mean, it's the thing with running backs too. Like Le'Veon Bell, it feels like he's so much older than he really is. Like by the time he was 28 or 29, his whole career was like over. But it feels like he did so much in such a short period of time. For a couple of years from like 2014, 15, 16, one of the best running backs I've ever seen. Really one of the best I've ever seen. But I guess that's the thing with running backs. Like a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the running backs, you get maybe 3 solid years out of them, and especially nowadays when you have a 17-game schedule that you're playing. it's just it adds on to that wear and tear, especially if you're used a lot. If you have to be used a lot.
Yeah, although in his case it may have been a little different, but yeah, that's the thing with NFL players is that like their careers, like they're just. I think part of my theory for part of the reason is because I think pure athleticism for many positions in football other than quarterback, I think athleticism plays a bigger role in how successful you can be. Like for instance, baseball players don't have to be super athletic. You don't have to be super athletic to hit home runs. You just have to have a good hand-eye coordination, a good swing, whatever. And pitchers have to have good arms. But running backs, like the most important defensive ends, corners, most of these positions, athleticism is just so important and such an integral part. Like there are basketball players that slow down, get a little older. Somebody like LeBron is a good example of this, or Chris Paul, a lot of players. But they can still kind of they can still be very good players in other ways. I think there's like artistry in a sense in basketball. But in football, it's like if you're a running back and you're not fast anymore, you're useless.
Yeah, you almost have to change positions, really. You almost be a receiver.
But even if you look at running quarterbacks, like athletic running quarterbacks, they can at least do something if they become less mobile. It hurts them a lot, but they can at least do something. Running backs, defensive ends, corners, they don't last because you're only at your peak athleticism for so long.
True.
I think a pretty big part, not to mention like you said before, the obvious, just how rough football is on your body. Like they only play once a week. That's another pretty big part of it.
True. Yep.
We could talk about your Giants signing Isaiah Likely. Look, I think it's an okay signing. It's an okay signing. I don't think it's terrible. But how much did they pay for him?
Isaiah Likely got, I believe, it was 3 years. I'll pull up the numbers exactly. But I like this a lot. And I'm not saying that just because he's a Harbaugh guy. The Giants have been, it was a 3-year deal.
$40 million.
$40 million. And he's only 25 years old. You want to talk about now, granted, he's coming off the worst season of his 4-year career. He was hurt to start the year last year. But again, that Ravens team though last year was strange with Lamar and the fact that Lamar started the year and then he got hurt and you were going to other guys and he tried coming back and he wasn't really the same player. I think that kind of had a role in it, but I think the Ravens were looking a little bit different because they had Derrick Henry and they were using him more. Remember, Mark Andrews didn't really do a whole lot either, so they didn't really get a whole lot out of their tight end position for most of the season. But I like Likely a lot. Now, I know him because he is actually a Coastal Carolina kid, so every time he was playing down here, we would talk about him because he went to Coastal Carolina. But I like him. Look, the Giants have had issues with the tight end position for a while now, and it's not an easy position to get right. I mean, remember, even in the years that the Giants were very, very good, they were going through tight ends like nothing. And that's what they've been doing here for the last few years. They thought they had a steal in Bellinger, but he has not really been that great. Theo Johnson last year got you some touchdowns, but man, he dropped so many passes last year. It just was a killer. So to get somebody who's established, and again, he's only been in the league for a few years in Likely, and he's a John Harbaugh guy, so he knows him well. I think this can't hurt. And you know what? I like what the Giants have done so far this offseason. They've gone out there and gotten some guys, some Harbaugh guys. They just also on Tuesday they signed Jason Sanders to kick. Look, and some people are going crazy about that. Come on, guys. Seriously? I mean, how many games last year? There were games last year the Giants didn't even have a healthy kicker on the roster. You're telling me that you're complaining about the Giants signing Jason Sanders? Seriously? I mean, I know he was hurt last year, but before that, he was kicking at a great clip. So I mean, I like what they're doing so far. I think these have been some solid signings. They brought back McFadden. They've got now some decent linebacker play, some linebackers with the former Bear Edmonds, and they're also talking about getting Sonny Styles at 5. I mean, that's a solid linebacking core, and in another position the Giants have struggled at for a while now. So I like this signing. I think so far they're having a pretty good start. Obviously, a lot more work that has to be done, but I think you have to like the direction this team is going in right now, especially when you look at, and I'm not going to try and jump the gun in saying this, but you have an average team in the Cowboys, who I think is still better than them, but an average team there. The Commanders, even though they're a year removed from being in the NFC Championship, I have no idea what direction they're going in.
Well,
and the Eagles, up until Tuesday, had not signed anybody outside of their organization. And all the talk about the Eagles the last couple of years has been the influx of drama that's been happening inside their organization. And the fact that, and you know what? I don't know I think the Eagles are still a very solid team. Look, they have the best GM in the sport. But there's something to be said, though, when you have a guy like Jalen Hurts that's going to have his 5th different OC in 5 years.
Yeah.
Now Baker Mayfield showed he can play with as many offense coordinator changes as he likes, but that's easier said than done.
Yeah. Look, I don't think the Giants are likely going to win the division next year. It's unlikely that they win the division, but maybe they have a shot at the wild card. I will say the Commanders. The thing with the Commanders is that Jaden Daniels was hurt for a lot of last year, and I think that they're going to come back and be better than they were last year. But you never know. That team has a lot of. That team still has a lot of
still
flaws.
Old, and their defense is awful.
Their defense is terrible, and their defense wasn't even the year they made the NFC Championship game. Their defense was terrible. So even then, that's a little bit of. I think that the Eagles are probably firmly at the top, but you never know because for a winning team, there's a lot of drama in that locker room. I mean, AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts don't seem to get along, even though AJ Brown is, I think, the godfather of his child. But yeah, they have a weird sort of love-hate relationship, it seems like.
Yeah, and I don't think that Nick Sirianni helps himself out a lot also in these situations. And the Super Bowl, and look, he won a Super Bowl, and it saved him because I think without that Super Bowl, I think Sirianni would be on the hot seat there.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that Super Bowl's saved him a few years.
Yeah. And also, and Eagles fans hated Sirianni until he won the Super Bowl.
Oh, no question. I know a bunch of Eagle fans that still hate him now.
They talked about Sirianni. You know what Sirianni was? Sirianni was the Ryan Day of the NFL. He's the Ryan Day of the NFL. He was on the hot seat for a long time. The fans of his team didn't like him. They wanted him out, and then he won a championship, and the same year Ryan Day did, and he silenced the critics that way. That's what Sirianni was. Yeah,
that's a very good comparison. I will tell you one thing though too, because Giant fans are going to tell me, my fellow Giant fans are going to tell me, well, look what Mike Vrabel did with the Patriots. Why can't the Giants be like that? I think John Harbaugh is going to give the Giants a bump. I don't think he's going to but it may take a couple of years, and I don't think he's going to get a big boost in year one because the division is a challenge, and that schedules for the Giants next year is still a challenge too. I mean, we talked about the list of opponents. They still got the schedule is still a challenge, and they never do well in division either. So I think they could get to 9, maybe 10 wins. I think 10 wins will get them in a wild card. But I don't think they are going to get the bump that the Patriots got with Vrabel in year one.
Well, almost no team's going to get that.
But I'm not saying as big of a bump. I think he'll get a bump, but not as big of.
Look, even if it's a minor bump, that's still a pretty good improvement from last year.
I agree. And look, I mean, compared to the crap that we had to deal with the last 2 years or so, absolutely. I'm just trying to temper expectations with Harbaugh. That's all.
Right.
But I like the direction this team is going in, though. I think it's very, very solid. I think they've had a very strong start to the offseason. Obviously, look, landing Harbaugh was exhibit one. That's the thing you had to do. So, and there's a lot more that'll go from here.
I mean, look, going in the right direction is more than you can say about the Jets. So.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to make this a giant Jet thing, though. But
I'm just saying. I mean, if you're going to compare me and you, it's well, at least you can say your team's going in the right direction. That's
true. That's why I was advocating for the Jets to get an experienced coach for the longest time. But Woody Johnson and the GM feel like they want to go down that road.
Well, last year, and people called me crazy, but I was saying maybe the Jets should get Rex Ryan or Doug Peterson as a head coach. And I don't think that would have been so bad. And ever since, look, people forget, but Jet fans overwhelmingly love the Aaron Glenn hire when it happened because he's a former player. And actually, Aaron Glenn's first season with the Jets was substantially worse than even I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I thought it would be.
I backed you up on that. I want an experienced guy in the worst way. And then maybe after this year they might be the direction they go, and maybe they'll realize that they need an experienced coach is kind of important, especially with a young quarterback, which they'll probably be going with after next year. I think you're starting to see that combination of experienced head coach with young quarterback really being the recipe for success.
Yeah. And also, I also kind of preferred, even though I said Rex Ryan, who's not an offensive-minded head coach, but I preferred an offensive-minded head coach just for having a young quarterback and things like that. That's what I preferred when the Jets were making a hire. And Doug Peterson is a pretty good offensive mind. Doug Peterson had a bad last season with Jacksonville. That is true. It's also worth noting he outcoached Belichick in the Super Bowl. He beat Belichick in the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback because he outcoached him. So, you can't take that away from him either. So that's kind of just how I felt about it at the time. Could we talk about the Hawks and Magic City night? The NBA, this is not a huge story, but I do want to talk about it a little. So the NBA canceled the Hawks who planned on Magic City night. Magic City, for those of you who don't know, is a strip club in Atlanta. And the Hawks wanted to have a night dedicated to, similar to how they have bobblehead nights, City Field, they'll have, I don't know, at City Field, maybe they'll have like a Juan Soto bobblehead night or something like that. Here, or sometimes they have things like, Italian Heritage Night and things like that. They wanted to have a Magic City night, which to me, to put it in terms that we would understand, or you might not even understand, but I at least would understand. It would be like if at MetLife Stadium they had a Stilettos night. Stilettos is a strip club in, I think, Carlstadt in New Jersey, right near MetLife Stadium. That's what it would be like. Or Satin Dolls, which is the spot of the Bada Bing on The Sopranos.
Yes. And you drive past it enough to know that you've never been.
I drive past it all the time.
So that's why you can attest to it. Because, of course, somebody's going to probably put in the comment section, well, have you been in there to know that? I was going to say, no, you've probably driven past it a million times.
I never walked inside, but I've driven past it. Look, it doesn't look the same way it did on The Sopranos, from what I understand, but it's not called the Bada Bing now. It's called, on the show, it's called the Bada Bing. In real life, it's called Satin Dolls. Either way, so they wanted to have a strip club night. Basically a night for Magic City, which is a pretty big strip club in Atlanta. I've never been to Atlanta, but that, from what I understand, that's how it is. So, and the NBA canceled it. And honestly, I don't know how much power the NBA should have over all of this, whatever, that's a different conversation. But the way I see it is that having a Magic City night, a night dedicated to a strip club at an NBA game is really stupid. In my view, I think it's really stupid in a lot of ways. I am not a stickler by any means of everything being family friendly, but part of me, I really do think that sporting events should be family friendly. A lot of people are bringing children to these games, and they don't want to bring their kids to a strip club night, a night for a strip club. I think I can understand that perspective. And from a business standpoint, I kind of think it's dumb. I think it's dumb to have that at an NBA game. That to me, I feel like games probably shouldn't be celebrated. Like NBA teams at games probably shouldn't be celebrating strip clubs. That's super weird to me. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
I gotta be honest. I had to research what exactly this was and what was going on, because it's like, well, why are you canceling a night? I've never seen anything like this before. I really haven't. I mean, I've seen some crazy like giveaways, or what I would think would be crazy giveaways, like different kinds of giveaways. But yeah, I don't know. And I don't know. And I'm not going to even sit here and try and tell you that I even know anything about the strip club.
I mean, it's a strip club. That's what and I know Lou Williams went there during COVID and got in trouble, and that's how he got the nickname Lemon Pepper Lou.
But I'm like, it would have to be something significant that a team would actually devote a night to it.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? That's what's so strange. Now I'm just going back and thinking back. So this pushback from this started a couple of weeks ago because Luke Cornett did it about a week or so ago. He requested that they cancel it. But there had been some calls for this,
and Al Horford too.
Yeah, an old school guy, by the way, Al Horford. Not that it has anything to do with that.
Not that it matters what Luke Cornett thinks. He never even played on the Hawks and doesn't play on the Hawks. But Al Horford is a Hawks, I would say.
Yeah. So I'm seeing something here from TMZ about a week ago saying that despite pushback from current NBA players, that the Magic City night was still on schedule to be celebrated in Atlanta, and then it came out on Monday that they canceled the promotion, which was supposed to be on the 16th, so less than a week from now that this was going to be. The statement from Adam Silver, by the way, said, when we became aware of this promotion, we reached out to Hawks leadership to better understand their plans and rationale. While we appreciate the team's perspective and the desire to move forward, we have significant concerns from a broad array of league stakeholders, including fans, partners, and employees. So I believe canceling this promotion is the right decision for the broader NBA community. Not that you're going to look that far in advance to see what your team is going to be scheduling and stuff, but it took until about 2 weeks prior to this, to actually gain traction. But again, you're not going to like dig deep into although we should like scan and dig deep into every promotion. This is something that maybe you would have thought about a little bit sooner instead of waiting about a week out. It's almost like, it's like, cramming for something and then you found out it's not going to happen. But that was the only thing is like, how did it take until a week before this night?
Because maybe initially the NBA didn't care. That's the only thing I can think of. But you know what? If you think about it, though, like in a corporate world, which is what the NBA is in, I don't know how much time you spent in the corporate world. I certainly have. And it's very big on like, you get like HR sexual harassment videos and things like that.
I do because I got to do CBTs every month for my job. And
that's what I'm saying. And it's like in that world, in the world that we currently live in, the current environment, it seems a little really just kind of dumb to have all of those rules in place and then also be like, yeah, and we're going to have a strip club night.
Oh, I agree. I mean, the only thing I would say is if I look deep into it, I would have to do some research about, I hate to say this, I would have to do some research about the strip club because I would need to know, what is it about this one in particular that we should be devoting a night to it?
It's a big, from my understanding in Atlanta, it's a big deal. It's a pretty big part of the culture. So I've heard.
Okay.
And that's totally fine.
And that's fine, yeah.
But it's just that, that's not really fair. That's not really appropriate. Like, that's just how I see it. Like, that's not really appropriate to have at an NBA game. I don't think I've ever seen that.
I mean, you could have done something, and this would have been also kind of awkward and strange, too. And you could have, talked about or, like, given a shout-out to a couple of the employees there. Or it's just in passing. Like, how, like, they say over like in announcements, like during commercials, we want to welcome this group such and such to the game tonight. Could you have done that in passing and be nonchalant about it and gotten away with it? Yeah, I think so. But I don't know about devoting a whole night to this. That would have been kind of strange, especially like you said. What if people are bringing their kids? And the NBA is known for families being at these games. I mean, the stories have been documented for a while now about how fans and families travel thousands of miles to see their favorite NBA player, and they decide to sit out and take one of those load management days.
Yeah, exactly. And like, how would you feel like if you're bringing like most of the people aren't bringing really small kids to the game, but it's a pretty big portion of people that go to the games where, look, it's kind of like how restaurants are always going to be family. Like they're always going to be appropriate for children on some level. Like, because some people do bring most people don't, but some people do bring small children there, and they're not going to make it inappropriate for them just at a restaurant. It's a similar thing at a game where, where a lot of people bring their kids. And I think I cannot blame any parent who says, I don't want to bring my kids to a strip club night to a strip club night. I can understand that. Like, that to me, I think makes perfect sense, and why I think it's kind of a dumb decision from a business standpoint to have that. And like I'm not against strip clubs. I'm not against Magic City or anything like that. But like that just, I feel like, is inappropriate. And also, a lot of people were talking about how like the Utah Jazz have a statue of Karl Malone and, his history. I'm sure you know about it. But it's not the same thing, because you can talk about Karl Malone without giving away that information.
Yes.
Like Karl Malone, you can just look at as a basketball player, and that's really it. You can't explain Magic City, because that's just his personal life. But you can't explain Magic City without it being a strip club. like that's just what Magic City is. Like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then what, the employees going to show up, and they have to show up like they would if they were being part of the strip club? That's the thing. Then they can't show up not right. That's
right.
So there's just a lot of stuff about it that just wouldn't work. A lot of red flags.
Yeah, like, it's one thing if you're talking about a place like Hooters, which is marketed that way. Like, that's completely different, because that's just what the place is. NBA games are just entirely that's a totally different thing.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So that's our show today. You can catch us live next week at Magic City.
Yeah. All right. Let me go book my flight to Atlanta.
So thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next. I think we'll be back. Our show will be coming out next Wednesday.
Yeah. So have your notifications set on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. We'll put out the thumbnail throughout the week, but we're looking at Wednesday next week. But just have your notifications set, and we'll let you know.
All right. See you guys then.
We'll see you next week.